All right, everybody. I am super excited for this one. My guest today is Amanda Balionis, the star broadcaster at CBS Sports, covering golf, NFL, football, you name it. Amanda, welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thank you for having me. And if you're going to be calling me a star, I'll just come on whenever you want me to show up.
I'll call you a star. You keep showing up, Amanda. This is great. But where I want to start, so you're a big star now. It looks easy sometimes watching you, but my understanding is that you almost gave up at one point right before you got the big break with CBS Sports. Talk about that for a minute. Take me and the listeners back to that moment of your career.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't even look at it as I thought at the time I was giving up. I really felt like I had been giving it 100% for so long, and things weren't shaping into the career I thought I should have. And it started to just like come into this place of acceptance that maybe where I thought I was meant to be and where I was actually meant to be were two different places. And I was going to just give in to whatever the next opportunity was. And that kind of all started. I majored in broadcast journalism at Hofstra University and knew from very early on I wanted to be in sports. I knew I wanted to be a football sideline reporter. I'm from Pittsburgh. Football is in my blood. And that was really the only option for me. I was really laser focused on that. Interned for the New York Jets, interned for the New York Islanders, because both of those teams at the time were right in my backyard at Hofstra. And then I interned actually for CBS 2, the local CBS in New York, which coincidentally is now the same building I walk into to do network specials, which is every time I walk into that building, I cry because it's like such a crazy full circle moment. Remembering walking in there as an intern, just dreaming one day of being able to work in television, period. And now, I get to go back there as, living my dream. But, I did all the right things. I thought I did all the right things. And, it's never a straight line, right? It's the line to, and the path that you're on is rarely linear. And I had ended up doing some sideline work in New York and in the tri-state area for some high schools and some small colleges. And then I got the call, which I thought was going to eventually lead to my big break at pjtour.com. So I moved down from Manhattan to Jacksonville, Florida, which was a huge culture shock in 2011. And, in my head, again, I have this all planned out, and I'm like, I'm going to spend 2 years there, and I'm going to get picked up by a network or a channel, and we're going to move on with our lives, and I'll be in TV, and everything will be great. And did not work out that way. I was at pjtour.com for 5 years, and for those whole 5 years, I'm like just waiting, and I'm emailing people who do the hiring at Golf Channel, at NBC, wherever I thought, at local, Fox affiliates all over the country, just trying to get my foot in the door to cover sports on television. And it just wasn't happening. Nobody was interested. I had done a couple auditions at other places, up in the New England area, but just nothing really came to fruition. And I finally, at year 5, hit my wall. You're working these crazy hours. I didn't have weekends. I had no real personal life to speak of because my schedule was so crazy. And I got this call out of the blue from Callaway Golf, and they were like, "Hey, we know you love San Diego, and we would love to bring you over to our marketing team to help us launch our media production department." And I really felt like, you know what, I worked my butt off. I did all the right things. I did all the right internships. I networked with all the right people. And if this just isn't my path, if being, a reporter isn't for me, and I'm getting this opportunity to work Monday to Friday in the most beautiful place in the country and still stay in sports, maybe I need to let go of what I thought my life was going to look like and just go where life is taking me. And I took the job. I moved across the country. And lo and behold, one, I'm not built for corporate America, which I learned very quickly. I mean, 9 to 5 was an insane. I would just leave. Like, I'd be done with my work and I would just leave. And my boss finally called me and he's like, "Dude, you can't leave at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday." I'm like, "But I was done with my
No.
work." He's like, "It doesn't." I'm like, "But what do you want me to do?" He's like, "You sit there until 5."
Sit there, you find something else to do.
Right. I was like, no, that's, I was so assignment based and I still am that way. Like, if you give me a task, I'm good. I'll work 14 hours until that task is done. But I was not really built for that corporate America, which I learned quick. And about 3 months into this, of me trying to figure out what this new life looks like, I get this call from Turner Sports, and I had done their digital coverage actually with Michael Breed. I know is a good friend of yours, who now is also obviously with us at CBS. And they said, "Hey, we know you've done the digital coverage for us the last few years. And actually, the previous year, that digital coverage was canceled. So I thought I had no job with them. They said, we not only want you back, but we want to promote you from the digital coverage to our network coverage." And I will never forget getting that call. I called my parents immediately. I was sobbing. And my dad was like, "I don't know what you're crying about. I'm giving you to your mother." Cause he was like, "I don't know what's happening here." And I just realized, like, man, I had let go. And all of a sudden was, I think just my ability to let go and be happy and accept with where I was actually ended up being the perfect timing to, to get this opportunity that I had worked for my whole life. And, Turner Sports at the time was partners with CBS. So CBS was actually the one producing me for that whole week. And I knew if I could do what I feel like I was made to do with CBS not being able to ignore me, that was my moment to prove that I deserved to be there. And it's what ended up happening. I worked for Turner that week, and then the following week I got a call from CBS, and they said, "We'd love to give you an audition at the Genesis Open." So this week is my anniversary work week, and it was basically a live network television audition. If it went well, they were going to talk to me about coming back, and if it didn't, then I was going to go back to my Monday to Friday marketing job that I was likely going to get fired at any day if I didn't get that job.
Well, it turned out and it worked out well for you, Amanda. So take me let's dig into a little bit of that further. So was there any point where someone had told you in the industry, they said, "You know what, Amanda, this probably isn't for you, or you don't have this skill set," or was it all this self kind of realization that, hey, if this doesn't work out, I gave it my best shot, it just might not work out?
Oh
Were
no,
there
there were
critics?
people. Yeah, of course. Listen, I compare the broadcast industry to Instagram comments, and the Instagram comments, right? I will post something and someone's like, "You're garbage," and then the next person is, "You're my favorite reporter on any platform that does sports," and that's exactly how hiring executives treat it too. It's so subjective. One person can look at me. I mean, there was one place I tried to get to for all 5 years when I was at pjtour.com, to the point where I was just emailing like a desperate whatever, the hiring person saying, "Can you please just even meet me for coffee? I'll drive to you the 2.5 hours just to explain to me what you're looking for, and I will try to be that." And she would answer back, no, like she had no interest in me at all. And I could have taken that really personally and been like, "You know what? I'm not." And she actually told my agent at one point, she is not better than one person that we currently have or are looking at hiring. And I was like, "You know what? She just doesn't get it. She doesn't get me. I don't think she sees the skill set that I can bring to the table." And I think I really did have so much self belief in myself that even when people were critical of me, I felt like, okay, I'm not for everyone, but I don't need to be, right? You just need the right person to be in your corner at the right time. And honestly, if I had gotten what I wanted so desperately at that time, I would have never ended up at CBS with my literal dream job, not just doing golf, but now back doing NFL football and college football and working with, I mean, mentors like Jim Nance. Like, this would have never happened if I would have gotten what I so desperately wanted for that period of time. So I do look at it like that I think if you're giving it your best and you have something that's a little bit different, people are going to be critical because it's different, right? Like, I don't think I really interview the way a lot of other people interview when you turn on a golf broadcast. That doesn't make it wrong. You just need the right people to see it the way you do, and that's all it takes. It's just one person at the right time.
So over those years, while you're preparing for that big break, it worked out. It's worked out tremendously well so far. You're getting reps. You're getting practice. You're honing the craft. Talk about that for a bit. Now you've got this self belief you have this self-belief that what you're doing is unique, what you're doing is of high quality. How do you continue to get better, even though you're believing in what you're doing?
Well, I don't think that self-belief is just blindly there. My self-belief came from my ability to prepare in my mind better than anybody else. Like I know when I walk into a room, especially with the announcers I work with, like think about the announcers I work with, Nick Faldo, Dottie Pepper, Ian Baker Finch, Frank Nobilo. I'm never going to know more about golf than them ever. But I knew that I was never no one else was going to be as prepared as I was. I was never going to walk in a room and have them look at me and say, she's not doing the work. I always do the work. And that's where my self belief came from, that you're never going to put me in a room where I haven't done enough research to be able to hang in that room. And listen, I'm the most honest person on the planet with that. There are things I'm never going to understand the way that my fellow announcers, understand the game, but that's not my job, right? My job is to bring out the personality in these players and dig a little bit deeper, I think, on the character side and the personal side, so that after we've talked three hours of X's and O's, you're gonna come to me and understand why maybe you should care about, I don't know, Akshay Bhatia, the person, not Akshay, the player, the teenager that you're watching right now try to compete and do some big things on the PGA Tour. So, yeah, I think that's where my preparation came from, is knowing I'm never going to know as much as the people I'm in the room with, but also no one's going to out prepare me either. And that is why I believe, why I always really believed I could get to where I felt like I deserved to be in this industry.
Well, Amanda, I mean, I'm smiling here because I love this story, but this is the mindset that I live my life by, and this is what we talk about every week on this show. I live by this philosophy that everybody pulls the tarp. This was a mindset that's been ingrained in me since I worked in minor league baseball 16, 17 years ago, and I thought I was going to do front office work, and they told me on the first day to pack some old clothes, put them in the locker room, and get ready to help the grounds crew all season pull the tarp on and off the field, because
Yep.
in the minor leagues, they have this, the same grass, the same dirt, the same field, but they have a grounds crew that's like a fifth of the size of what you have in the big leagues. So I learned quickly that in sports and in any industry, on any team, everybody has to chip in, everybody has to contribute in unexpected ways. And I've told people throughout my whole career, I'm never the smartest person in the room. I'm never the most experienced. There's been lots of times throughout my career I've been the youngest. Almost all the time I'm the youngest in a lot of rooms, but nobody's going to out prepare me, just like you said there.
Yep.
So this tarp pulling mindset to me is all about doing these things that aren't in your job description, aren't necessarily expected of you. That preparation, that relentless focus and preparation to be at your best. Take all of us behind the scenes into your preparation. Is it different for golf coverage versus NFL coverage? Take us through your processes and methods.
Yeah, it's hugely different. It's funny you say that, because when you're talking about like preparing during like minor leagues, it's like when I interned at the New York Jets, and my job was to really organize the fan mail, because they had never had an organizational system with that before. And then all of a sudden, I'm in the operations department and I'm zip tying banners up for summer camp. And there was a couple of years ago that something happened with the weather at one of our tournaments, and there was a banner that either came down or didn't get up. And I was like, oh, I'll go zip tie that up to the tower. And they were like, that's literally illegal. No, you can't do that. But that
There you go.
mindset, I'm just like, dude, like every you're a part of a team, right? Like, yeah, we all have our title, but that is not the lane that you stay in. Like you should be jumping in to help at all times, no matter what, to make the team better. And I do that often. If there's a swing coach that I know, and our analysts are all on air, I'm happy to jump on the phone or jump on a text while we're on air and be like, hey, can you send me what this guy's been working on, and send it to all of the announcers, and listen, they might know it already, they might not. But if I can even be like a researcher during those times where I have downtime and I know no one else does, I'm jumping in there to make sure that our team is as well prepared as they possibly can be, especially when, players at certain times might pop up on the leaderboard that we hadn't previously maybe talked about. So
Okay, Amanda. So take me into the preparation, the methods, the routines to prepare for NFL football broadcast versus golf. Is it the same? Is it different?
Very, very different. Football is almost the complete opposite in terms of the way I prepare to golf. Golf, I have like a 10-year Rolodex basically in my mind. Golf is such a unique sport in that the guys that I was interviewing 10 years ago, Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, Jordan Spieth, all of these guys are still out here and they're going to be out here for quite some time. So, I can look at Dustin Johnson and think about things that he's talked to me about, or, actually, is a great example, Daniel Berger. Daniel Berger just won this past week. And I remember the interview I did with him when he won, last year at Hilton Head. And I was like, or Colonial maybe, wherever we were, I remembered the interview and I was like, Daniel, you told me this. And he got this big smile on his face. I was like, I'm going to ask you that same question. He was like, dude, yeah, I thought my game was the best it's ever been when we talked this time last year. And this year, now it's like, not only is it even more than that, my belief, but now like there is no limit. And I just thought that was such a great answer. And it was based off of, a standing relationship with Daniel that, you know, it's just like this rolling, it's just like this rolling gathering of information that is constant over the years. And I think the difference between that and football is for NFL, they're very compartmentalized. The coaches are changing often. The star players generally are the same, but not nearly for as long as the PGA Tour is. And you get 90% of your research done before you walk into the stadium that day, right? I'm reading every article under the sun about these guys. I am, you're interviewing the coaches, you're interviewing the players beforehand. And then I come in with maybe 5 or 6 stories for each team, knowing that maybe only 1 or 2 of those total are going to get on in the game. But you want to be prepared for if that does happen. Hey, I got it. I knocked it out of the park. That was worth all of the research that's kind of been left on the cutting room floor. And that final 10% for football games comes from you just observing what's happening and understanding the context of those storylines, right? So it's kind of flipped on its head in terms of preparation for football. I feel like you have to read. If you saw my notes that I now, cook down to 6 stories per team, it's probably 30 pages total that I can, then have to condense. Whereas golf is more like, oh, I know these guys, or maybe I'm checking up on a new guy and doing that individual research. But all of it's kind of been growing and collecting in my brain for the last 10 years.
So is it all just stored in your brain, or like with golf? So are there notes? Do you have it indexed? How do you keep track of it all? If hey, there's something, I remember this from a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, I'll remember it, right? Like I just said to you, I'm like, man, right off the top of my head right now, I can picture that Daniel Berger winning interview, but I'm going to have to go back into our research computers and remember exactly what tournament it was, what month it was. I have a great memory in terms of regurgitating what players have told me, like even 5 years ago. I can think about that interview, pull it up and be like, okay, yeah, I remember him telling me that, but I might not be able to remember exactly when and where he told me that. So that's when you go back and look at it. Okay, where did he win? Why were we talking about this? What was that rain delay that Mark Leishman agreed to talk to me before, the final round when he was in contention? Okay, that was down in Dallas, and so those are the types of things that I will look back on. And I also rely really heavily on transcripts in golf. I feel like players for golf are so focused on 1 or 2 things throughout the week. So I always find it really interesting to read their pre-tournament transcripts and interviews, because usually you can find some buzzwords in there that allow you to think about what they're really focused on for the week. And if you can bring that full circle back to them in those exact words that they were using, usually they're going to open up a little bit more because you hit on a nerve and something they've been thinking about all week.
How important are the relationships with the players and coaches that you build and continue to compound year after year? Like you said, in golf, it's a lot of the same guys over and over and over that you're covering.
Yeah.
What about in football? When there's rookies and folks that you don't have that relationship with, is it harder to get the scoop, harder to profile?
Yeah, I feel like I'm almost like a rookie again, because I'm trying to build those relationships for the first time that I haven't had to do that in a while in golf. But I will say it's funny, man. Golf, just everyone loves golf. Athletes love golf, and I've been able to use that to my advantage when covering football. Like Matt Ryan, I interview him at the Pebble Beach Pro Am. So I did a Falcons game this year, and Matt's like, "Oh my gosh, man, great to see you. It's weird sitting here talking football with you instead of golf." Like that helps. Larry Fitzgerald, same thing. We were at a Cardinals practice 2 years ago. He ran off the field during practice to come say hi to me. And I'm like, man, I would have never had these relationships and these guys automatically trusting me if it weren't for golf. And that does help. When other players, I think, see these guys talking to me in a relaxed, trusting way, that can't ever hurt. So those things definitely help. But yeah, I am slowly but surely trying to build those, the relationships that I've built in golf that I think have been probably the most important part of my career. The fact that guys know me, recognize me, and trust me, and know I'm not like I'm never going to give them a gotcha moment. That's just not what I'm here for. That's the type of relationship I'm really hoping to build, but it takes time in football as well.
So Amanda, let's get into more of some of the other things that you're interested in that to give the fuller picture. So you're a certified yoga instructor, if I understand that correctly. I know you're doing some fantastic work throughout your career, but especially of late with your new foundation, Puppies and Golf, and some of the work. I want to get into all that. But before we do, you're on the road a ton, I would imagine. I mean, constantly.
Yes.
How do you maintain the balance, stay healthy, stay sharp, stay focused while you're putting in all that work and you're doing it on the road in most instances?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the road probably about 40 weeks a year, and now I am in a very serious relationship with a guy who lives in Miami. So we can just add even more to that traveling, because why not at this point? So being on the road is actually more feels more normal to me than being home at this point, which is, it just is what it is. And what I've learned is you have to build the same habits that kind of create a positive and healthy lifestyle when you're at home are the same things you really have to commit to on the road, right? So I the first thing I do, I find the place I'm going to get coffee in the morning. I'm going to find, we can't use the gyms right now with, COVID protocols, but I find a place where I can go for a walk and, maybe go get a workout in outside or bring things to work out in my room. I always, if I'm going to be on the road for a long time, I'm bringing my yoga mat and I'm going to go to a Dick's Sporting Goods or somewhere to go get some free weights, and I'm going to work out in my room and make sure that's a part of my everyday, routine. So, and making sure you find like the healthy eating spots, all the things you would do in your home. I really try to stick to that when I'm on the road, because if not, travel wears you down anyway. But if you're not taking care of yourself and not giving yourself the space to, mentally, emotionally, and physically stay and be healthy, it's going to wear you down a lot faster. And it's not going to last. So those are the things that I really try to commit to. And honestly, the Puppies and Golf stuff started because I felt a void in myself emotionally, because when I started traveling so much, I wasn't able to volunteer weekly like I was doing prior. And I do feel like being of service is something that provides me an immense amount of, gratitude and fulfillment. And when that was not a part of my life anymore, I realized, man, I got to find a way to continue to be of service to something I'm passionate about. So that's when I started going to the dog shelters in different cities, and people started watching the stories and actually donating to the shelters. And I was like, oh, there might be something here. So, we've grown that into an official foundation now. But really, that all started from trying to maintain a healthy routine that gave me fulfillment. And it wasn't just about my job and making my whole life about, my career aspirations.
It's fantastic because, so often you hear people it's all about, you hear people complain about being on the road so much, and they let their circumstances define them. You
Mhm.
kind of flipped it and said, hey, I'm going to be on the road, let's say 40 plus weeks a year. How am I going to check more of the boxes that fill me up when I'm doing that? And you just attacked it and put a game plan together. It's so fascinating, right? I mean, before the pandemic, I was traveling I was on a plane generally once, maybe not as much as you, but once a week, almost once a week. And every time I'd be in a new city, I would go to great cities like New York and Boston and Miami and LA. And I'd always go to, the best spot to eat in those cities, regardless of whether or not the food was healthy. And I would justify it by saying, I'm on the road. And then 8-9 weeks in, I say to myself, to the year, I say, I'm on the road every week. I can't keep doing this. I have to actually, when I'm home, maybe I could treat myself a little better, and splurge a little bit on the food outside the diet or whatever I'm doing. But for you to build a program and a process and a system to not only stay healthy, eat right, exercise, but also to give back to something that a cause you're passionate about is really cool. Where can people find more information about the Puppies and Golf, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, we can go to our website, puppiesandgolf.org, or you can follow us on Instagram, Puppies and Golf, which I advise you to do because we have a lot of happy puppy posts that will just bring a smile to your face. So those are the two places right now that you can really find us, our website and our Instagram page.
I have to say, I've followed some of those stories. You can't not smile seeing some of those puppies, Amanda. So before I let you go, I always want to know, somebody who's a high performer like you, if you're not listening to this podcast, hopefully in the future, what else, Amanda, are you listening to and reading? What are you consuming to improve your content diet and make you better as a person?
Yeah, so I'm an avid reader, and I go through waves of reading things that make me smarter and make me a better person, and things that make me just wind down and escape. And I'm currently in, I think, the mental space right now where I just kind of need like the fictional garbage, for lack of a better term. Like I need to be able to turn my brain off at night. So I am currently reading anything you can think of for like summer reading. That's pretty much where I'm at. But I do, when I'm home, especially, I live in San Diego. I live near the water, purposely because I feel like it's where I gain my peace. And I get a coffee, I put on a podcast, and I walk until that podcast is over. And I listen to a lot of Glennon Doyle, Brene Brown, Oprah's Soulful Conversations is a big one, with the Deepak Chopras. And I just listened actually to one which was pretty piecemeal from a bunch of different people she's talked to about fulfillment and what fulfillment is, why it happens, how it happens, and how we attain it. So those are the things that I'm always interested. Sean Aker, I listen to a lot of him. He's a happiness researcher. I think a lot of times we think about, or at least I do, I always want to get to the root of when I'm feeling uncomfortable or distressed, why I'm feeling that way and how I can fix it. But I think maybe a lot of us don't focus enough on the positive part of it and what can help us rewire our brains to be more positive and be happier, and sustain that regardless of the things that are happening in our lives that we can't control. So I listen to a lot of that, a lot of researchers that kind of take all of the scientific proof of just the human experience and make it digestible into, okay, how can this actually be applied into my life? And then, yeah, from there, right now I'm just reading a lot of garbage, but that's what I'm doing currently.
Hey, it's not garbage because it's helping you. I always say it's like the content diet is as important, if not more important than the diet, because the content diet, you are what you consume, right? You can choose to consume things that fill you with negativity and fill you with frustration, or you can fill your content diet with things that make you feel more positive, make you feel more educated, and or more relaxed, less anxious, better at what you do. So the content diet, Amanda,
I like that.
you gave me a lot of new ideas in terms of podcasts and stuff to read. Amanda, this has been so much fun. We'll have to do a part 2 sometime. Thank you
Yes.
for spending a few minutes with Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.
All right, stay safe and keep doing your thing, Amanda. We're rooting for you.
Thank you.